In this lecture, we're going to be talking about sensory and motor integration. We're going to be covering how to increase plasticity and correlation with the cortical map system. Sensory integration includes processes that works on the different senses that we have in the human body. But a motor skill is different. It's a function that involves extremely precise movement of muscles with the intent to perform a specific act eventually. Now, of course, also motor skills are divided into two different categories: gross motor skills and fine motor skills. Fine motor skills is for smaller actions, whereas gross motor skills is for larger movements. But we're going to talk more about this as we go on through this lecture. For now, we're going to start talking about the sensory integration. Under our skin, there is a huge number of nerve networks, as well as touch receptors in the skin. It is known as the somatosensory system. And this system is responsible for all the different sensations that we can feel through touch. We can be talking about feeling cold, hot, rough, tickle, itch, sometimes pain, and vibrations or a certain kind of stimulation. All of these things are things that you can feel because of your sense of touch. Now, there will be an article that explains all the different information regarding how the touch sensation work. I'm going to include it in the course, so in case you want to know more about the sensations and how they actually work, you can always refer to these articles to know more. However, for the course itself, you don't need to know how these things work in order for you to be able to achieve neuroplasticity. But what you need to know is ensuring constant sensory stimulation can ensure brain stimulation, of course, because as each and every one of our senses is linked to a part of the brain, that means that every single stimulation that comes through our sensations will ensure a certain brain stimulation. Keeping in mind that each and every one of our senses has a huge and critical role when it comes to neuroplasticity. One of the major components of neuroplasticity, as we talked about it before, was experience. So now let me ask you a question. How come when you put your hand on something that is hot, you move your hand away? And how come you would avoid touching something because you know that it's hot? Well, of course, it all goes back to our sense of touch. Past experiences have taught you scenarios where there might be a danger of touching something that is hot. Now, our reflex, of course, works as magic. When you touch something that's hot and you feel pain and then you just remove your hand, of course, our reflexes play an important role. But afterwards, how would you prevent yourself from touching what is hot, knowing that this might be hot? Well, of course, it's through neuroplasticity. The experience you had when you touched something and it was hot and it was painful, this rewired your brain in a way that understands that this scenario is linked to a hot plate, which is linked to pain, and therefore you won't do it anymore. So each and every one of our senses has a certain role when it comes to our experiences, and therefore when it comes to neuroplasticity. And as we learn to use our senses better, to enhance the connection and the link between our sensations and each and every part of the brain that they can reach through any action, we will be ensuring stronger and easier ways to achieve neuroplasticity. And don't think that this will need years of training. There are some concept things that you can do on a regular basis that can have dramatic changes on the link between the sensations and the brain. Now, starting with the touch sensation, what do you need to do to improve the link and the connection between the sensation and the brain? Well, first, consciousness about what we're touching. Now, the idea of consciousness will appear a lot of times throughout the course. Because when we're talking about the human mind, when we're talking about the brain, one of the most crucial elements to know what's going on and to have more control over your brain is through consciousness and mental awareness. Now, going back to the touch, consciousness about what we're touching and, of course, what we're feeling. When was the last time you took a shower and you actually paused for a second to see how it feels, how the water feels on your body? Well, you might do it, but a lot of people don't. But another question would be, how many times do you do it? And why not every time? Even if you're taking a quick shower for 2 minutes, you can put shampoo on your head and feel how the shampoo is rinsing your hair. You can stand underwater and clean yourself up while feeling how the water feels like. And second thing is developing sensory recognition patterns. People who are blind, they use sensory recognition patterns. They have an entirely different alphabet, rules and text that only they can read through their sense of touch. And through experience and consistency, they become so good at sensory recognition patterns that their ability to do it will overcome the average ability of a person who doesn't use it as much. Of course, people will say that it's because of the experience, but because there's the experience, there's neuroplasticity. What's really going on is that it's becoming hardwired in his brain, and this is what's giving him this huge advantage over the others. When you wake up at night and it's dark, but you know exactly where your phone is and you put your hand and you touch your phone, this is sensory recognition. Now, the more you rely on your sense of touch to recognize and identify stuff, the better the link and the stronger the link will be with the mind. And if you still don't really understand how the sense of touch can have this dramatic change on you, the next time you feel sad or upset, get a small feather and let somebody pass it slowly between your two lats right on the spine. Let somebody just take it from the top and drag it all the way down slowly. And when it's done, let me know how you feel. But I can assure you that worst case scenario, you will at least smile. And this is a start. Now we move to our sense of vision. And the way it works is actually fascinating. Vision involves this process where it converts light signals. Every single thing that you look around you and you see is emitting light. And then your eye would receive this light, and then it's focused to the retina, where photoreceptors that are called rods and cones convert this information to electrical impulses that can be interpreted by the nervous system and the brain. So every single time you're looking around, there is constant brain stimulation that's coming from your sense of vision. And if we want to talk about experiences, we all know that the sense of vision is one of the most important factors when it comes to experiences. You identify danger when you see it, and you know that it's danger because of past experiences, and those past experiences were interpreted as danger primarily through your vision. And that's exactly why when you see it, your sense of vision perceives it and sends it to the brain, and then the brain will be able to translate what it's seeing into a message saying to the brain, there is danger. I will also add an article for vision. I will add an article for each and every sensation, so you guys can just go there and check it out if you want to know any more information. But all the information that I'm going to tell you throughout this course is what you need to be able to go through all of it. Any extra information, I will not include it in the course, as some people don't like an overflow and information that aren't really relevant and useful, but others like to know them just for the sake of knowing them. And that's exactly why I'm adding the articles. However, now we want to talk about how we can improve our sense of vision and its correlation with the brain. As I said when we were talking about it, the sense of touch, I said that we're going to mention consciousness a lot. And it's not just for vision and touch. For every single sensation, consciousness is a must. and I'm going to repeat it every single time to give examples so you guys can know what you need to do when we're talking about being conscious. So when it comes to vision, for example, in the book The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, Tibetan monks had this habit. It's called the rose technique. And every single morning they would get a rose and they would stare at it and watch all the details for about 10 to 15 minutes. And that's exactly what visual consciousness is. You are becoming aware of the details. So you're not just looking, you are looking in depth and looking at each and every single detail. You can take as much time as you want, as long as you see all the details that are on the rose, or whether you're using something else. You need to notice all the details. Take all the time you need to notice these details and be conscious of what you're looking at. And in the example of touch, we talked about feeling the water when you're taking a shower. But moving on, another technique that you can use for your vision is rapidly observing the details and then observing the whole. So the next time you pass by someone and you feel attracted to them, make sure to check out the details. Look at their shoes, look at the color of their jeans, look at their top, look at their face, look at the details, but do it really fast. Start from the bottom and go all the way up and all around in a very, very brief time. Be as quick as possible, but notice as much details as possible, and then look at the big image. So don't focus on one thing, but focus on the entire person. Of course, you can't do this every single time you see someone. Just do it at certain periods where you decide that you want to do it. Because these techniques are not things that you need to do on a daily basis, but these are things that the more you repeat, the better. If you want to do it every single time, be my guest, you'll be doing a great job. But most people can't, because at one point you will just forget about looking at someone and looking at all these details and looking at the whole. So make it a habit to do it every now and then. And of course, I'm going to include in the course a lot of resources that can help with that. But for now, keep it in mind that these two techniques are essential for the connection between their vision and the perception that's going on in the brain. Now we're going to talk about our sense of taste. And I'm going to give a very quick example. It's Saturday night and you decide to stay at your place, and you feel like you want to eat something. You want to eat a big meal filled with calories while you're watching your favorite show, for example. And let's say you got this meal and you started eating it. The minute you start tasting it, you will have inner joy. And you know what I'm talking about. When you eat the thing that you've been wanting to eat for a while, you have this dopamine rush inside of you. You feel satisfied and you feel happy and you feel good about yourself. Just remember how many times you saw people eating and moaning, how many times you thought people think that they can actually have an orgasm while eating, because food has this huge effect on our brain. And let's keep one thing straight. It's not our sense of taste that's actually identifying the taste. It's the brain that is identifying the taste, and that is doing all these amazing things when we eat. And it's simply the link between the sensation and the brain. And it doesn't stop there. Our sense of taste is responsible for saving our lives. When we want to talk from an evolutionary point of view, people in the past used to identify bad food and poisonous food through taste. Whenever they eat something and they feel that it's bad, they would spit it out. So our sense of taste also ensured survival. Now let's take a scenario. You lose your sense of touch. Has it ever happened to you where you were a little bit sick and then you can't taste anything anymore? So whatever you eat feels the same. Whether you eat a burger or you eat a salad or you eat a toast with peanut butter, it all tastes the same. Why? Well, because you can't taste anything. And then you go to a $1 restaurant and you order chicken for 50 cents. And apparently the chicken died long time ago. But when you eat it, you don't feel like there's anything wrong because, well, you can't taste. And Taste and smell are very, very similar, but we're going to talk about the sense of smell later. Now, when it comes to tasting, we can taste sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and savory. Those are the 5 main flavors that our sense of taste can detect. So the perception of sweet food is different than the perception of sour, is different than the perception of salty and bitter and savory. Each and every one of them has different sensory inputs when it comes to their correlation with the brain. Each and every one of them stimulates different neurons and different neural structures and networks inside the brain. And this is where we move to the taste plasticity. How to ensure that your sense of taste and its correlation with the brain are increasing on an exponential basis. And first things first, mixing up your diet. As we said, there are a lot of different processes when it comes to tasting. Sweet is processed in a different way than sour, in a different way than salty, in a different way than savory. So when you mix up your diet and you eat different kind of foods, you will be stimulating all the possible neural networks that you can actually stimulate. Second thing is to avoid processed food. There's not a lot of things that would go into processed food when it comes to taste plasticity, but processed food can have a bad effect on your brain, and it has a lot of other side effects related to cancer that if you can avoid, just do it because it's better for your health and also better for your mental health and your brain energy and power. And lastly, conscious eating. So not just mixing up the diet and eating different tastes and different flavors, but also being conscious when you're eating something salty, being conscious that it's salty. See, nowadays, most people, when they are eating, they are usually looking at their phone or they're watching something. Nobody can just sit down and eat without looking at the phone or moving or watching something or listening to music. Just try it. Go cook something, leave your phone in your room and go cook something and sit down and just eat it. Every time you have a bite, you close your eyes and you focus on the flavor. And believe me, when you're first going to try it, you're going to feel that there's a certain level of discomfort because you've been using your phone and Netflix and other devices for a long time when you were eating, that it just became wired in your brain. But once you start paying attention to your sense of taste, you will discover that this sensation can take you places. When you really focus on what you're eating and what you're tasting, people usually devour food, especially when they're hungry. They would eat food very, very fast without pausing to actually feel and taste what's in their mouth. Doing that can increase and strengthen the relationship, the correlation, and the link between our sense of taste and our brain. And now we're going to move on to our sense of hearing. And just like all the other sensations, there will be a small article that talks in details about how the process of hearing works. But for now, explaining briefly how hearing works. Basically, our ears work to transform all the acoustic stimulus that's coming from around us. It travels down our ear canals into a type of neural code. Our brain can recognize this code, process it, and understand it and make sense out of it. The vibration of the eardrum that happens transmits those vibrations to the cochlea. And then the fluid in the latter would start to move. And then the combination of the vibration and the moving fluid would be transmitted into the brain, where it's going to be interpreted and analyzed by the brain to make sense out of it. And of course, going back to previous examples where we talked about how our sensations are related to neuroplasticity, there's a lot of things that you identify through your sense of hearing. When you hear a gunshot, you know that you need to move and that there's something going on. When you hear music, you want to dance. When you hear somebody calling you, you want to answer. When you hear somebody saying some erotic words in your ear, whispering it to you, you will get aroused. And all of this is coming from your sense of hearing. Now, of course, a big part of it is the brain's interpretation to what's going on. If somebody is saying some erotic things for you and you understand them, you will get aroused. But let's take a different scenario. You only speak English and you meet a girl that speaks only French. And then she whispers some sexual, erotic stuff in your ear, but you don't understand what she's saying. Then you will not be aroused. But when the girl was speaking in French, you heard her, and when the girl was speaking in English, you also heard her. But the difference is, your mind can translate and interpret English, but not French. So when you heard the words in English, your mind interpreted the situation as a situation where you can reproduce, of course, as a basic instinctive mind, and that's why you got aroused. So hearing is also essential in each and every one of our experiences. All of our sensations are important, and I don't want to say one is more important than the other. They are all eventually complementary. So now the question is, how to increase your hearing plasticity? Well, first, something that each and every person does every single day, I think, listen to music. Listening to music was found to enhance your sense of hearing. The more music you listen to, the more developed your sense of hearing and the connection between it and your brain will be. But careful to not listen to music on a really high volume, because these vibrations can sometimes be too intense on the ears that they actually mess up the hearing sensations, and you don't want that. Second thing is to have a certain kind of variety. People tend to listen to the same music every single time. I had this problem, and I still sometimes have it. I listen to the same song over and over and over and over again. There is a song by Pink Floyd that I listened to for 2 years straight every single day. And this is not good. Variety is always good. Mixing up your playlist, adding different stuff to your playlist, different genres, different music, different artists and bands is always good, because each and every song that you're hearing will make you feel different. And when you feel different, there is, of course, different brain stimulation that's going on, which is eventually the goal, right? And lastly, consciousness again, focusing on listening. Try this following scenario. If you have a song that you really like and that you've listened to a few times, put it again, but this time, close your eyes, block everything, all the notifications on your phone, and just focus on the song. Put the earbuds and just listen to it in details, and try to take each and every sound that's happening by itself. So try to listen to the guitar playing by itself. Try to listen to the voice by itself, to the bass by itself, to the keyboard and drums by themselves. Try to make each and every sound that you're hearing stand out. And I can assure you that this will increase and strengthen the link between your sense of hearing and your brain a lot. And lastly, when we're going to talk about the sensory integration, we are going to be talking about our sense of smell. Imagine the following scenario. You're walking back from work. You're hungry, you didn't eat yet, and you really like McDonald's. And then you pass by McDonald's and you smell the food. Then there will be an automatic response in your mind that will say, hey, I'm hungry, I want to eat. And of course, you might think about why you shouldn't eat McDonald's. No, I'm on a diet. No, I don't want to pay for this. Like, it's not time to pay for this. I need to save the money. But most of the times, your sense of smell would be too powerful for you to just say, let it go. I'm just not going to get anything. Hunger, which is a physical function, can be affected by our sensory system, and in particular, our sense of smell. When you smell something good in terms of food, you will get hungry. Has it ever happened to you where you went with people to a restaurant or someplace and they asked you if you wanted to eat anything, but you just ate 10 minutes ago and you just say, no, I ate 10 minutes ago, I'm good. And then the food is on the table, you smell it and you're like, you know what? I'm actually hungry. I can actually eat a little bit, right? And the reason why this happens is because of our smell plasticity. So, 2 quick exercises that you can implement on a daily basis to improve it. First and foremost, attentive smelling, or smelling with a sense of consciousness, being aware of what you're smelling. The next time you put shampoo on your head, you're not just feeling yourself rinsing your hair, but also smell the shampoo and smell the body wash. When you're making food, smell the food before you eat it. Another thing would be wearing perfume and changing it. When you wear perfume, you're going to smell it. There's no way out. But when you don't put perfume, you don't smell a lot of things. That's why when you're walking in the street and somebody who passes by is wearing a lot of perfume, it will hit you in the face. You will smell it so well and it will cause stimulation in your brain. Just opening a bottle of perfume and smelling it would give you a certain tingly sensation in your head that is caused by the perception of this sensation. Now imagine being able to have this constant stimulation. When you wear perfume, you're having this constant stimulation, just like the case where we talked about the person passing by you who's wearing perfume, but now you are wearing the perfume. And it's not enough to just wear perfume, but changing it every now and then, because different smells have different brain stimulations and different brain functions, and vice versa. And now we're going to move on to our motor skills. Remember the last time there was a coin on the table, and the table is kind of slippery. There's glass on it, and you try to pick up the coin, but it's stuck. So you have to move it all the way to the edge of the table so it falls in the palm of your hand. Now let's get back to the part where you were trying to pick up the coin off the table. This part where you were using the tip of your fingers and a little bit of your nails to try to take the coin off the table. This is you using your motor skills. Now we'll take another example. You are playing volleyball. You throw the ball to the setter. He sets it to you. You take 2 steps. You put your hands and your arms behind you. Then you put them all the way up in the air and you jump. And then you hit the ball. These are also motor skills. But what is the difference between both of them? Well, we have gross motor skills and fine motor skills, as we talked about in the beginning of the course. Gross motor skills are large movements you make with your arms, with your legs, with your head, generally speaking, with your body. It can include running, crawling, jumping, punching, everything that includes large movements and that includes your arms, legs, head, and your body can be considered as gross motor skills. And now fine motor skills are smaller actions, finger and thumb actions, wiggling your toes, typing on a computer, using the tongue to taste and feel objects while you're controlling your tongue. So eating ice cream, for example, moving your tongue around the ice cream to make sure that you feel the taste as much as possible. This is what we know as fine motor skills. Now, when we talked about the cortical map before, we said that each and every part of the brain is connected to our cortical map, which is basically the entire nervous system and nervous network that is in the central nervous system and how it's connected to our entire body. So each and every motor skill that you do will stimulate a certain part of your brain, will stimulate a certain group of neurons and neural networks and systems. And neuroplasticity works on these skills. We'll take an example to explain how neuroplasticity can work when it comes to motor skills. First example is, you have 2 people, same height and same weight, same body composition. One of them can dunk and one of them can't. And the question is, why? Well, when one of them works on his gross motor skills, he works on his legs and improves his jumping. He does a lot of plyometric exercises to increase his vertical jumping, and the other one doesn't. What's happening with the first person, let's call the first person person A, who can dunk, and person B, who can't dunk. Person A, through the repetition of the legs exercises, through repetition of polymetric exercises, through practicing dunking over and over and over again, he developed these gross motor skills to be able to dunk. But Mr. B, unfortunately, can't dunk. Why? Well, because he did not develop his gross motor skills. Now, Mr. A will be able to dunk easily, and he will get to a point where, when he's playing a game, he can run, jump, and dunk without even thinking about, oh, I want to dunk right now. It becomes automatic, it becomes a lifestyle, it becomes hardwired in his brain. Now, we'll give another example as well. You have a magician sitting right in front of you. They give you the deck of cards and they say, shuffle it. You take the cards and you can barely shuffle them. And then he takes the cards and he shuffles them with a lot of different tricks. With the tip of his hands, he does tricks where he shuffles the cards in a way that you've never seen before. Now, why can he do it and you can't? Some of you might say, well, he knows how to do it. Well, try to open YouTube and watch a video on how to do a certain shuffle, and let me know if you can do it right away. Now, of course, you're going to say, not right away, but I'm going to need some practice. And of course, that's what you need. Consistency is the way for motor skills to become hardwired in the brain. So the first phase was learning. When you learn, you have this new experience. This experience turns into behavior, and through repetition, the behavior turns into a habit. Now, this habit, if it was rewarding, if when you did this shuffle in front of somebody, they liked it, they felt astonished, you felt the sense of accomplishment, then you get a reward, and then it becomes wired. This process of learning, experiences, behavior, habit, reward, memory is a system that you need to understand by heart. The more we progress through the course, you will learn more and more about each and every one of these, but the goal is to be able to understand all of them and mix them all together in a way that makes sense by the end of this course. So, generally speaking, there are some things that you can do to work on your motor skills, whether they're gross or they're fine motor skills. Keeping in mind that you get to choose whatever skills you want. Whatever fine motor skill you want to work on, you can apply the rules on it, and whatever gross motor skill you want to work on, you can also include the rules and work accordingly. First and foremost, repetition. We talked about this before, and we're going to talk about it again. Repetition, repetition, repetition. The more you practice, the more likely it is for the connection and the link between neurons to form, ensuring neuroplasticity. And second is consistency. When you have a new behavior that you're trying to turn into something that is wired into your brain, you do this habit or this behavior for a week, and then you stop for 2 days, then you do it for 3 days, and then you stop for 4 days. You're not ensuring consistency, and we talked about this before. You will fail to get the link between the neurons and eventually forming the neural network. Third is variety. Switching up and changing the pace of things. A lot of times, especially if you work out, you would know that if you do the same exercises for a while, your muscles will stop developing. It gets to a point where if you do the same exercise routine, you're just not going to progress anymore. Your muscles are not going to grow anymore. And personal trainers tend to change the nature of exercises and what you're doing and the reps and the sets a lot to have this muscle impact. Because if your muscles get accustomed to a certain type of exercise, through neuroplasticity, it will become way easier to do these exercises, but then you will not see any muscle improvements. And same thing goes for basketball, the example that we gave. If you keep jumping in the same way and not challenging yourself and putting more weights, you will not jump higher. So ensuring a variety of actions related to this certain behavior is always a plus. Focus and mindfulness, we already talked about them. There's an entire section about focus, but mindfulness and meditation as well. There are going to be guided meditations at the end of the course that you can use and that you will use according to the calendar and the planner that we had set up for the course. These guided meditations will guide you through the process of mindfulness for you to be really aware and conscious of what's going on in your mind, your thoughts, and of course your external environment that can give you bad vibes and eventually bad thoughts. Lastly, one of the most important rules: getting out of the comfort zone. Try the following scenario. Try to tap one hand on your chest and try to rotate the other hand, moving the other hand in a rotation kind of movement on the tip of your head. At first, you will not be able to do it. Unless you have really good motor skills, you will not be able to do it because you don't feel comfortable doing it. You've been used your entire life to move your muscles in a certain way, in a certain correlation and accordance. So when you want to move your muscles in a way that they're not used to it, they will feel like there is something wrong. You will feel discomfort. A lot of people would go to the gym consistently, but there are some exercises, even though they're very useful, they would never do them because they don't feel comfortable doing them. When they lift the weight, they just feel discomfort, and then they just drop it instead of learning and making it hardwired in their brain and making it just like any other exercise. They would just drop it, when in fact all it needs is for you to try it and make sure you're doing it right. And then you got out of your comfort zone and you started building this neural pathway and this neural network and structure by connecting the different neurons coming from this action where you went out of your comfort zone to do it. And getting out of the comfort zone did not just help you create and maintain this new habit or exercise, but challenging your comfort zone also have huge positive impacts on the human brain. So, in short, any action that involves gross or fine motor skills, with the ideas mentioned before, you would improve the overall plasticity through motor skills and integration. And of course, same thing goes for sensory integration. When you want to work on certain senses more, you would do that. You should pick the senses that you want to focus on, if not all of them. And of course, you need to pick the motor skills that you want to work on and improve. And you follow the steps that we mentioned before: comfort zone, focus and mindfulness, variety, consistency, and repetition. And when you do that with consistency, you will start building this neural network caused by all the different neurons connecting together and firing up together when you're doing, of course, a certain action that stimulates this area of the brain. And as a result, you will improve your overall brain plasticity, of course. And you will ensure that there is a very, very good correlation between all your senses, between your perception, between your motor skills, your cortical map, and your overall nervous system.